Hi, Zizaran here with another Path of Exile University lesson. And today we are going to be covering Finding Bargains with Professor Zizaran. Today's episode is basically going to be talking a little bit about things like pathofexile.com/trade, how to use it, how to look up like cheap gear, because sometimes people are probably spending 20, 30 chaos when they could just be spending 1 chaos and getting better gear, but you might not be able to find it. So it's also hopefully going to be a shorter lesson. And after this lesson, it's going to be racing with Tai Killer. But let's talk a little bit about trading in Path of Exile and tabs and stuff like that. So, what are trade sites? Well, for a long time, they were strictly third party, but now there is an official one, which is pathofexile.com/trade. And they index items from public stash tabs and also forum threads. So even if you don't have public stashes, you can make forum threads to sell them there. And this is like continuously improved over the history of Path of Exile, where initially it was only forum threads and no stash tabs. They're also like not synced completely in real time. So sometimes if you're just trying to buy the cheapest thing, you might get sometimes just no reply at all because people are shit. But a lot of the other times you might get a reply saying, hey, this item is already sold. Every listing is a sell order. So that means that like a buy order is really just you're selling chaos orbs to buy alterations, for example. So some mods you can search for directly. Like I'll bring up cluster jewels as an example. You need 2 different ones. So for example, to search for cluster jewels, you would need to like search for this, and then you can search for the specific one you want. So you want cold damage or chaos damage. And then you need to search for the number, that one, enchant added small passive skills grant. So now, for example, the reason we would want to do this is for most builds, you would want to have like as few as possible passive skills for large cluster jewels. So then you can specifically search for that instead of searching for ones with like 10, 11, or 12, right? And for the majority of users, you're never going to want more than 8. You're always going to want 8. There are other uses where like on the medium or small ones, you would want like the small ones can go between 2 and 3. And then you can do either 3 or 2. Or just not care about searching specifics. And sometimes on the medium ones, you would want 6. But on the largest, you pretty much always want 8. And something that gets brought up a lot that we can just quickly mention, like when you see somebody selling things in Perandus coins, sometimes people will just list things really, really cheaply to appear at the top. When you try to message that person, they'll very often say like offer, and you're like, what do you mean? It's listed for 1 Perandus coin. And it's kind of a shitty way to trade, but a lot of people will list things for like an alchemy, 0.5 alchemy, just to appear at the top of the trade search, and then haggle with you afterwards. It's a shitty way to trade, in my opinion. Sometimes you'll have a reduced X mod, like for example the mana reservation node. So if you search for increased mana reserved, and then you do -5, then you're getting the reduced reservation that you are searching for, which would let you do auras more. And like this helmet has and here we can see the 0.5 Perandus coins. So obviously they're not selling this helmet for 0.5 Perandus coins. They're just doing it so that it appears at the top. Now, I haven't seen people do this in hardcore heist, so I guess it's strictly a softcore thing. I wasn't actually that familiar with it. But something you can do if you don't want to deal with bullshittery like that, and a lot of people hate it, you can just like go around and click ignore player, and when we like click search now, these people will not appear in any trade. Let's see, let's look through a little bit more on the filters. So there are some useful settings. By default on pathofexile.com/trade, you can see here at the bottom it has sale type, which is buyout or fixed price. Now that means that if you're using this site and you're searching, if I'm searching for a Chrome's Heart and somebody has listed a Chrome's Heart but with no price, that will not appear. And you have to change this every time. I can't find a way to make it save, but it's important to know that this is there, because there are so many people that don't know that this is a buyout or fixed price by default. Sometimes when you list something, like I had a and Nebulus, a really, really good weapon up for sale for days, and the majority of people didn't know it was for sale because I hadn't bothered putting a price on it. Right, so this should, with the tilt here, it shows like all things that have like reserved mana related things in it. So you can search for everything regarding that, and you can do that with like life, all risk, etc. It's really annoying on my keyboard because I have to like copy paste it from somewhere else. But it's a useful feature to search for like mods of that variation. There are a lot of good settings here. Like, do make sure that you like look through everything so you have like a rough idea of where everything is, especially if you are switching over from PoE trade. So you can there's loads of things you can do. Sometimes, especially on softcore trade, some things that have been up for a long time could be people price fixing. You can also set like minimum price, and we're going to be showing a lot about this here in a second. There's a couple of different price fixing things people do. We'll talk about the different ways. So sometimes there will be a really, really rare item. So Hinakora's site and other items that are particularly rare but particularly useless is a huge market for price fixers, because sometimes, especially early league, you might be able to, as a scammer, be the only person who has these items. And what they do then is that they will approach a new player and be like, hey, I see you have a Combs Heart for sale. It's been up for a little while. It's not selling. I don't have any currency, but could I offer you this Hinekora site? You can see that there's 2 up for sale. They're worth 9 and 7 exalts. I will let you, like, your Combs Heart is only worth 3 exalts. I really need it for my build, and I'll let you have this Hinekora site, and you can resell it very quickly for 5 exalts. This is a very, very normal scam. It happens a lot. The item that they're offering you is always a scam. It is in Path of Exile possible to trade for items, but you want to make sure that you're an experienced player and you know exactly. Like, for example, like several times I've given people items, right? But then both me and the other player know that we're getting a good deal in items we need. So the number one thing here is people, you do like bestiary uniques, prophecy uniques, faded items. And most of them are just like not really worth it. So only do an item to item trade if you are exactly sure that it's an item you need and it's you know it's worth doing the trade. They will always try to convince you. They will sometimes throw currency on top, and most of the time it is a scam. Not always, but most of the time. A lot of the time, some of the more expensive items in the game. So let's say normally a Chevron's Wrapping or a Combs Heart is normally worth like 200 chaos, right? Let's say that's what they're actually worth. Sometimes what a lot of players will do is that they will, on multiple accounts, list them cheaper, like 20 chaos, 50 chaos, 100 chaos, whatever, right? They'll list them cheaper than what they're worth. And then they will wait. They will wait and have something called a live search open. So they'll, like, for example, click live search here. And then this will notify them. You can also, they could have custom ones that are even like more updated. I think they've like changed some rules around that lately with how often they can update too. But either way, they'll be like waiting, like, oh my god, this guy just listed a Chevron's Wrappings cheaper than my fake item. Then they'll buy your item and reprice it for the actual value of 200 chaos. So do be careful. It's sometimes hard to see. And it's a shitty thing, because like it means that you can't always know if the item that you're like looking up is worth nothing or actually expensive. And for this, I would recommend like looking down the listings a little bit. If there's like 10 listed like very, very cheap, like 5 or 10 listed very, very cheap, and then a bunch listed at like 200 chaos, they're probably worth closer to 200 chaos. Like now on softcore here, you can see that like nearly everything is listed super cheap, right? So there's no reason to believe like that these that are listed for 1x are underpriced. It's always worth it to recheck the price or ask for advice if you're getting instantly whispered by people. Sometimes some nice people, I've done this quite a lot on Hardcore Trade League, mostly hoping to earn 6th karma, But if I see something listed like ludicrously cheap, not just like a good bargain, like this player clearly does not know the worth of this item, just let them know. Like, we were all new at some point, and it'll earn you some 6th karma. Always be careful for a few other scams as well. The number one thing that'll happen a lot is everything looks to be in order. You're trying to buy a 6-linked Chevron's wrappings for 8 exalted orbs, right? And you're excited, you finally saved up your 8 exalted orbs, and you go to trade said person, and they put in a 6-linked Chevron's wrappings, you put in the 8 exalted orbs, you click accept, they cancel the trade. And that is in when your head, it should go like the Metal Gear Solid sound should appear in your head, because if somebody cancels a trade in Path of Exile, 98% of the time, they're up to no good. In fact, they were busy lulling you into a false sense of security by having the correct item in the trade to begin with. The next time they open trade, they will have a 6-socketed, 5-linked Chevron's wrappings, which is worth a lot less, and this hurts a lot of new players. Ideally, what Path of Exile should do to like help combat this, and I'm sure you could argue that it's the player's fault for not checking properly. You do have to hover over the item still, but I just don't see there being any reason why they couldn't add 2 different soft glows when an item 6 links and 5 links. There could be like a red sharp glow when an item is 6 linked, and a golden dull glow when an item is 5 linked, and no glow at all when an item is just 6-socketed. So I feel like this is like a little something they could have added that wouldn't really like hurt it. Like, there's no reason not to. No reason not to, in my opinion. But it is, at the end of the day, like, you do have to hover over the item. You are responsible for yourself not getting scammed. And there are other scams in Path of Exile that you can't do much about. There are people offering a crafting service. Sometimes they will just take your item. That does happen, and obviously there you are completely at the mercy of the buyer. There's no system like in World of Warcraft where there's an enchanting window, which there probably should be. Do be careful, and there are a lot of scams. We're going to show a couple of magical tricks here and talk about pseudo mods. So let's do a very, very common search. Let's say that you are playing Path of Exile, you're excited at least, and you risk kill maybe Kitava, but you are not resist capped, and you want to buy new boots, right? So maybe you don't care that much about life. You only want like 50 or 60 life, but you want at least 30 movement speed, or at least 25, right? These are the ones we're going for. Whoops, not pseudo life on this. Just life. We'll talk about pseudo here in a second. So like I'll actually like click search throughout, so we'll see how much each is a limiting factor, right? Here we have 2,777. And now we see that my character needs exactly 37 cold res. Needs exactly 37 cold res. And it needs it also needs 37 lightning res, right? That is exactly what I need on my boots to res cap my character. 26, right? 26 results. Now, pay attention. Pay attention to this number. And then, let's say that maybe I only have 5 Chaos Orbs, right? I might only have 5 Chaos Orbs. Well, hopefully I'm about to blow some people's minds here, because there's some really, really good techniques to gearing your character. So in the same scenario, we're now going to search for... Come back here. We're not going to search for boots. We're going to have same 60 life and 25. But we are going to search for pseudo res. And I always like forget which option it is, but I think it's this one. I think it's this one. And just to make sure, because I'm bad with head math, 37 times 2 is 74, right? Now we're going to search for 74. And this is the best way to gear the start of your character, because the kind of gearing that I was doing here is actually not a great way to do it. Ideally, what you want to do is on your first few items, search for pseudo res. So now we're searching for exactly the same quantity of resistance, same quantity of life and movement speed, and let's look at the different in results. Now we already have one as cheap as 5 chaos. These are really good boots for 5 chaos. And let's remove the 5 chaos max and see how many we have. Now there's 419, right? And loads will be very, very cheap. A large amount will have no price and you can whisper them and message. But look at the big difference. Look at the big difference in the search. Let's remove the on both. Here we have 26. And here we have 419. So what this does is it makes it less specific. Yeah, it's just really, really strong. So we are also another thing you could technically add in here. You can look for, is it empty they call it here? You could ask for an empty suffix. Now this is probably going to show none. Oh, it'll show 1, and this is pretty expensive. These are really good boots and actually worth 85 chaos. But this one has the cold rest, lightning rest, movement speed, high life with dodge. So this is a movement speed and dodge in one roll. Oh, but it's corrupted, sadly. If it wasn't corrupted, it would be really nice. But empty, knowing that you can search for empty prefix or empty suffix is very important. Right, so let's go back to this search and explain a little bit. So pseudo is extremely powerful for different various of ways. And let's go back here as well. So if I have this search here with 24, there's not really much I can click on to scale. It's just listing cheapest to most expensive, and we see loads of different boots. The most expensive ones being, well, pretty expensive. 450 exalted orbs. Wow. However, what we can do here is we can click on this pseudo mod and it'll show us the highest for sale. So let's say that we're going to be a little bit more generous with our chaos orb equivalent, right? Let's say that we want some really solid boots here. We want to spend 80 chaos orbs and we want to get some really solid boots. Now there's 125 for sale, and then I click on pseudo. Then I can see that I can get up to 120 total all res. Now this is not showing unpriced ones, sadly. And you can see if I scroll down here, I see a real fucking bargain here, which is what this episode's all about. We're bargain hunting. These are some really good boots. 108 res, and it's just 20 chaos orbs. It's just 20 chaos orbs. These are really good boots. These are like super, super fine for endgame and definitely worth 20 chaos orbs. So that's like one use for it there that you can do. So and we can show it again. So what I really like doing when I am playing Trade League is for my first few items is that I do this search with it, which are very generic, and I try to get like very high ones, and then when it comes to your last item, right, like you try to like be a little bit aware. You don't want to end up with like 160 lightning rest and 30 fire, but then since you're getting so much more value for money and just really high resist items, a lot of the time my last item I might not even need resist. And then what it ends up being on my last, like maybe my last ring, I end up just being like, okay, I can search, I only need 13 lightning rests now, so I can go for a ring that has like really, really beefy life. And then I can search for like total pseudo max life, which would then like, I want like 110 life on a ring, which should include things like strength, life, and a coral, right? Here you can see like the max possible life on a ring here is 155, because this isn't searching just for this suffix. 155 on one ring. That's including the strength, the life, and the implicit. When I do these searches for pseudo res, I end up finding so good gear for so cheap that this very often ends up being the case, that my last two items I'll need barely any resist. Barely any resists. And we can show another example as well, just to make sure everybody gets it. And we'll show one with life too. Whoops. And then we're going to search for, let's say we want a fairly, we need a lot here. So just fairly simple. cold, lightning, and max life on a ring. There are only 41 results. And then if we search for if we search for, let's see, we're gonna do for 80 pseudo again, and you'll see like it's just such a big difference. So it's this stuff: total elemental resistance with pseudo in front of it. It's such a big difference. Such a big difference. And this is online only. And then you can again, like, let's say we want to spend 8 chaos on a ring. We'll do that on both. 8 chaos. Here there are 0 results found. Here there are 82 results found. The biggest ring we can get, which is actually, I don't even know why that doesn't. Oh, well, I mean, technically, I probably should have had pseudo cold rest here because the LA rest would have showed up there. Because if we would have searched for, this would have included all rests. So that ring actually should have shown up in both searches. There. Yeah, that's the ring. So like here we have 2 results. That's including the all res, and the cold and lightning res. But you see here we only have 2 for less than 8. Here we have 82, and a lot of which are very, very close. So it's like, and this is online only. If we look at offline as well, we have 5,768 matches. Here we have 139. So it's just like, it's very, very powerful. Most people that are like veteran players and play Trade League will be using pseudo searches in their search, especially for the first things they buy. And then you have so much more room for being specific with your resists. Another big tip as well for resist capping, like sometimes you'll have a character that's just like very, very hard to resist cap. And what you can do, I'm trying to remember what the actual max res you can search. Is it 55 or something? 60? Can't remember. 52? 48? So the most res you can get on a jewel is 54. So what you can do is you can search for jewels. Sometimes they'll be very, very cheap. And these can help res cap your character very, very easily. And sometimes save you a lot of money on gear. Because, I mean, some of these can be pretty good too. Sometimes you'll get 1 or 2 like other mods that you need. But it's worth checking for. And I do this quite often. And then you can do, it's all rest and then either fire and lightning cold, lightning and cold, etc. And try to get one with like, you know, if you're a bow build, look at this. This is 1 chaos, 54 res, and 15% damage with bows. Dreamas, do you have to go more than 75 res on every element or should I go for more? Especially on softcore, you don't need more than 75%. Do remember that you lose resist when killing Act 5 and Act 10 Kitava. But the reason you sometimes see people actually caring about overcapping their resistances is because of the elemental weakness curse or like flammability and stuff from monsters. Sometimes monsters will curse you, and if you're not curse immune on your flasks, it can be nice to overlap. Just very, very important to remember that you can search for empty prefixes or empty suffixes or just empty modifiers at all. The reason why you'd want to search for this, sometimes people will maybe have like a really, really nice glove. Like they could have a glove with like 74 life, 24 cold res, 42 lightning res, and then an open suffix. And they haven't bothered putting a search in. Right? A lot of the time, a lot of players aren't searching for that. You can end up getting yourself a better bargain. And I specifically, when I have a fairly nice one, I will craft on it myself. Like if I have a ring with an open suffix, I'll craft resist on it just to make it appear in more. And you can like save yourself a lot of money looking for empty prefix and empty suffix. A lot of players might not even know that they are craftable. So Get yourself some bargains. Their misfortune is your fortune. We're going to talk a little bit about some more advanced things. So I've covered this a little bit in a prior lesson, but we're going to go more in depth here. So jewels are both jewels and power. Words are hard today. It's too much excitement. I feel like I got drunk yesterday on Path of Exile News. I'm basically hungover today. Jewels and flasks are a huge powerhouse in Path of Exile that sometimes you'll be like watching a build guide by me or somebody else. And I'm sure this has happened to quite a lot of the people watching, where you've been watching a build guide and they're like, wow, I've copied all of Mathel's items or all of Zizaran's items, and I feel like my build is almost the same, but I'm dying all the time, or I can't kill monsters as fast, and I'm watching him just like right-click monsters and they're disappearing. And this is a lot of the time because of proper flask usage, but also jewels. Jewels is the #1 thing that players underestimate. And they're to put it into perspective, I have had builds in the past where I might have like, let's say it's a really expensive build, right? Let's say a build I've used 100 Exalted Orbs on. Sometimes I've only used like 5 to 10 Exalted Orbs on the gear the character's wearing, and then 80 Exalted Orbs on the jewels. Because on a lot of builds, jewels are just so strong. The character I'm about to show is kind of similar to that, where I had a lot of people try to copy this character in Harvest, and a lot of people had like the same items the character are wearing. These are all Harvest crafted items, very, very hard to get now. And a lot of people had similar items to this, and I looked over their profile and like, yeah, all your items are solid, but your jewels are shit. Because like on this character, I invested so much in jewels. Like, look at this insane jewel. That's like, what does that even total up to? It's 5, 6, 7, 4, 22%. And it actually goes 1% higher, so it could be 23% attack speed on one jewel. Now, obviously, this is an extreme example, but I just want to really drive home the point that this can really, really make or break a build. Really, really make or break a build. And all the jewels on this character are like kind of insane. Where you'll see like every jewel on this character is 4 stats, right? 16 int attack speed, and this is a int stacking character. And this is very, very prevalent in bow and wand characters, where it'll be very, very based around your searching eyes and murderous eyes for actual power. So that is important to keep in mind, and very, very underrated. But how do you search for jewels? A lot of the time when you're following a build guide, I try to do different ones and explain it a little bit extra in my build guide. So I'll try to put in like 3 jewels and show some different stats that work for this guide. But something that you see very, very often in rookie build guides is you'll see, for example, just this, right? You're doing like Axe Cyclone, and you'll see that they have a jewel like this. This is the jewel that they have up for sale, or like in the guide. Then you search, and sure, I can find this, but a lot of the time you'll find very, very few, right? Because there's only 3 things. But for so many things, there is a shit ton of stuff you can search for. So we're gonna like talk about that now and show a little bit how to like figure out what you can use and what you can do. So let's say that's what I'm doing, right? I'm doing 2-handed Cyclone, and I'm using axes. So we're gonna remove these. Now I'm a hardcore player, so I want life. I'm putting that in the top filter here, which is also, it's gonna be an and filter basically. It's gonna be this is something we always want on it. Now we're gonna click on this one, add new stat group, and we're gonna do a count search. So what we're gonna do now, first off, we can am I at 6? First off, we can go get a Cyclone gem and look at the tags. The tags is something not every player knows is there, and it's actually very, very useful. So I can actually afford a Cyclone gem. Times are hard. So here we see at the top up here, we can see that Cyclone has loads of different tags, right? Very, very important to pay attention to. Attack, AoE, movement, channeling, physical, and melee. And a lot of these tags give you an indication of what you can use on jewels. And then we also have to remember that we're using two-handed weapons and we're using axes. So let's keep all that in mind when searching for things here. And I remember the first 10 times or something I showed this on stream, people are like, Zizaran, you're insane. Obviously, you can't search for a jewel with like 100 stats. Well, you can. So first, let's just get the axe ones out of the way. So we search for damage with axes, attack speed with axes, and physical damage with axes. I also end up adding quite a few ones that maybe don't even work on jewels, just to make sure that I've covered everything. Then we have two-handed. We have damage with two-handed weapons. I don't know if that is a jewel stat, but we're throwing them in anyway, right? It's completely okay. Pretty sure it is like physical damage with two-handed weapons is the jewel stat. But we're putting it in anyway. I think that is all the two-handed ones. And obviously it'll take some practice getting everything right. And then I can't always remember if it's like, is it just melee damage or attack damage I can get on a jewel? So you know what? It doesn't matter. I'll just throw them both in. Let's see. I'll just throw them both in because for this, it doesn't matter. If it's something that doesn't actually exist on the jewel, it's better to have too many than too few. Just make sure that they are like the core mod and not pseudo, because that can sometimes mess it up. Let's see. And it is... There's one more two-handed one. I swear there's one more. Maybe not. Right, anyway, let's see. Melee damage. Any melee damage ones I've forgotten? Nope. And then we remember we can do area damage. And you can do increased damage. And we're not crit on this build, so we're not searching for crit or crit multi. Generally also, I would always say you never want to do crit chance on a jewel. The stat is actually very low. It's something like 15% crit chance or 15% crit multi. There's no channeling on jewels, but you could throw that in too, I think. But there's no channeling on jewels like this that we're about to search for. And we're already searching for life. Let's see. There's a few more attack speed mods. We can search for generic attack speed. You can search for attack and cast speed. I sometimes don't bother searching for this because it's like a worse stat. Somebody suggested leech as mana. This is actually a very, very powerful stat for a lot of physical attack builds. So it is definitely worth searching for in this search. Physical attack damage leech as mana. And then let's see what else. And now we're particularly searching for normal jewels. You could make a hybrid search too to search for both abyssal jewels and stuff, but obviously we can't get stuff like onslaught, facing, etc. We can't get on this because now we're searching for cobalt, crimson, or viridian jewels. But like that is like most of the searches. Did I do generic damage? Yeah, this is most of the search. And now you can see that we're searching for a lot more things, right? And these are the main things I want. So now we're going to look first for 4-stat jewels just to see like maybe there's a 4-stat jewel for me that's really, really good. And you can set 7 life if you want, but you could also keep it at 5 and then divine it later. So now when I have 3 count here and 1 here, we're searching for 4-stat jewels. Early league, that might mean that you might not get any at all, but you might also like have this as a whoop or an active life search where it'll like show you when something like gets listed. Here you can see that even as cheap as 5 chaos orbs, you're already getting really, really good bargains. Corrupted jewels here that you can't divine and stuff, but these are like pretty nice jewels for very cheap. And then the jewel we initially searched for, which I think I've deleted the search, but was like a 3-stat jewel And we didn't have that many searches, but if I now search for a life and double damage duel, you'll see that there will be an insane amount of items. It caps out, right? So even if you look online only, there's 1,000 3-stat ones, and then quite a few less 4-stat ones. And obviously it's late in the league now, right? It's nobody's playing right now. I'm surprised there's this many results to begin with. So this is really, really good to do for a lot of builds. To like look through, think about all the things you can use. Like if you're a cold spell skill, you know, cold cast speed, cold damage over time, depends what you're doing. But like really think about all the different stats you can use. Hopefully the build guide, you're using details this a little bit. I think moving forward, if we have time, I'm just gonna parse all of those damage modifiers into the notes for all my build guides. Matiki makes like really, really good in-depth notes for new beginners, even showing where to buy gems. But yeah, that is like some of the searches there. That's like the main things. Let's see, is there anything else I want to cover in the basic one?